Welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, your favorite financial analyst, and in today's video I wanted to revisit a previous topic that I made a video on involving the employer match 401k. I would like to focus in on a very specific aspect of these retirement plans, which is the quote-unquote match portion. What the match essentially is the amount of money that your employer is willing to give you basically for free, assuming that you also contribute X amount of dollars into this retirement account. I would like to showcase the true importance of just the free money that your employer is willing to give you by isolating it and then tracking that dollar amount over a long period of time. This should hopefully show you why it's absolutely crucial to maximize the amount of free money that you can get from your employer to benefit yourself in the long run. With that being said, let's get right into the video. Okay, so here we are in Excel once again. I put a very simple spreadsheet together today, and this is going to hopefully illustrate basically the general concept behind the 401k match process that you as an employer can take advantage of with your company. So for those of you who aren't too familiar, maybe you haven't had a job yet or whatever it may be, or maybe you haven't had a job that has offered the match program, essentially you're going to hear you're going to read one sentence and you're going to have two percentages within that sentence to determine basically how good a 401k plan is for the given company. So this sentence that you'll hear HR read or you'll read in the onboarding documents is essentially, this employer, ABC employer, will match blank percentage or X percentage of the first X percentage of your salary. Now, what this essentially means is, starting backwards to front, it's going to take a percentage, whatever it may be, of your salary, and your employer will contribute a certain percentage of that percentage. So let's take just a simple example right here. Let's say our salary, that we sign on for is going to be $50,000, and the employer's plan is kind of the gold standard, right? Which is, as I've said before, is 100% match of the first 6% of your salary. And like I said, working backwards to front, we're going to take 6% of your salary, which is $3,000. With a $50,000 salary, and our employer will match 100% of that amount. So the amount of free money that our employer in this case is going to give us per year for the retirement account here is going to be $3,000. Now, one thing to note is not every 401k match program is the same. I believe I think Amazon is maybe 50% of the first 5% or something like that. And, if you have a salary of $50,000, they're the amount that they'd give you if this is your plan, right? The employer will match 50% of the first 5% of your salary. They're only going to give you $1,250 in a given year versus, kind of the gold standard, which is 100% of the first 6% of your salary, which would be over double that amount in a given year. So now that we know kind of how the 401k match system works at different companies, we can take this isolated amount, or we can isolate the amount of free money that this employer is going to give to us, and see how big of a difference this money is going to mean over the long term when you're planning for retirement. So here we are on a different sheet than before. This one's a little bit more complex, but it's going to remain relatively consistent throughout the video. So what it's basically going to do in a nutshell is basically track the amount of money that we incorporate in here at a given return rate, and then it'll spit out a certain amount after a certain amount of years, basically. So we know from the previous example, right, that if we have a salary of $50,000 and this is our 401k match process, right, 100% match of the first 6% of your salary, we know that our employer is going to give us $3,000. And this is great, right? Because this is $3,000 free dollars that we don't get to keep and spend, at the club, but we get to have in our retirement account to continue to build some returns. And then, the story, you get to an old age and then you start using the money, right? But what we want to do, what I want to showcase is how important that $3,000 is, just the free money that your employer is willing to give you over time. So let's say right now we have $0, right? But we start, getting the maximum amount that the employer can give us. So let's say we get $3,000 on an annual basis. The return rate in this example, we're going to leave at 8%, just for consistency. I don't want to make it too high, and I also don't want to make it too low. But let's say we're invested in this account for 25 years, just for example. So the annual contributions, right? The $3,000 on an annual basis at the end of a 30-year period, right? So let's say you're 25 and you're 55. Just the free money that your employer is willing to give you has now built up a value of around $330,000. And it could be more, right, depending on how the market has been performing, and it could be less, right? But as a general rule, right, keeping things consistent at 8%, which is maybe slightly above modest, but this is a huge amount, right? Just the free money that our employer is willing to give us now has a value of over $300,000 at the end of a 30-year period. And one important thing to note is that this isn't the whole story, right? Because since we've isolated just the amount of free money, this would realistically be double, right? Because we're also putting in $3,000 to this account in order to get that $3,000. So this, at the end of a 30-year period, assuming that, you only contributed the $3,000 to your account, you'd still have, $700,000 at the end of a 30-year period, which is quite significant. The other very, very important thing to note, and you may have caught this if you were thinking ahead while I was talking, when I was rambling there, is that this assumes, right, this model assumes that every single year we're getting $3,000 as our match, right? But what that basically means is that our salary isn't changing, right? Because 6% of $50,000 is always going to be $3,000, right? So if we keep this consistent, that basically means that we're never getting a raise, or we're never getting a promotion, or whatever it may be, which ideally, is not the case. Ideally, at the minimum, we get a raise at the end of the year, assuming we're doing what we're supposed to be doing at work. But the ideal situation is, you get a raise to account for the cost of living, and then you get a little bit of kickback as well, to help you with other endeavors in your life and such. So basically, what's going to happen is the amount of money that your employer is going to give you on a year-to-year basis is actually going to go up, right? Sorry for the voice crack, but basically, so 1 year you're at 50,000, maybe the next you're at 55,000, right? So now they'll give you 3,300 instead of just the $3,000, and let's say you have a bigger jump, right? So now maybe you're at 75,000. Now they're going to give you $4,500, assuming that you put in $4,500 into this retirement account as well. Now there is a cap to this limit, right? Obviously, not everybody's going to have, their salaries aren't going to go up into, the $800,000 just to be consistent, right? They'll generally taper off at a certain point. But the important thing to note is that your returns are just going to keep snowballing, because as you keep getting raises and so on, the amount of free money that you're going to get from your employer is also going to increase, which means the amount of returns are going to increase as well. One important thing to note also is that there is a cap to the amount that you can put into the traditional 401k. There are a few different ways that you can, kind of use backdoor methods to increase the amount that you put towards retirement, which I'm not going to get into in this video. And I believe the maximum amount that you can put towards your 401k in the year 2024 is going to be about $23,000. So, you put in $4,500, you get the $4,500 match from your employer. So now you're at $9,000. You still have, however many thousands of dollars that you can contribute to max out this 401k. But the free money that you're seeing here is so significant in the long run. So there you have it. Now you know why it's absolutely crucial to get as much free money from your employer as possible. It doesn't seem like much money on the surface, but as you saw, this can equate to hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run from just the amount of money that your employer is willing to give you for free. With all that being said, I hope you were able to take away at least a little bit of insight from this video here, and I hope you're now motivated to get as much free money from your employer as possible. As always, if you have any questions for me personally, or if you'd like to take a look at the financial services that I can provide to you, I've left my email and a link to my company website in the description box below. Thank you again for your time today, and happy financing.